Hey everybody, welcome back to the Divergent Comics YouTube channel. Um, Here with another indie comic creator. Love how consistent it's been this year so far with just getting so many new creators that I've had a joy of meeting through threads. It's been great. But today I have the current and first editor-in-chief at Forbidden Origins Comics here, Seth. Could you pronounce your last name for us? I don't want to butcher it.
Oh, no worries. Fotopoulos. I didn't know you could see it on there. No,
Yeah.
my last name's Seth Fotopoulos. I'm Greek, so that's where that comes from.
I was going to say either Greek or Italian, so I like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I met Seth through Threads. He was one of the people that interacted with the post I made. And again, this is one of those stories I haven't had a chance to purchase or read, but I do plan on getting it as soon as possible. So by the time this video comes out, I either would have or will be getting the book. But he has a story that really interested me. It's called These Lies End in Death. And we're going to definitely dive into like what that story is about and more in regards to what to expect based off of what I've seen so far about it, which piqued my interest, which is why I'm doing this interview. But before we get into that, Seth, tell the people about yourself and how you became a comic book creator.
Yeah, so I'm, again, the first and current editor-in-chief of Forbidden Origins Comics. Forbidden Origins is a company started by Eric and Armani in Florida. We found each other through TikTok. Like, Armani was making, like, thirst posts. Saying, he was like, we want to make, like, an Avengers, like, team of writers and artists. And I was like, okay, that sounds fun. So
Wow.
we hooked up that way. We ended up putting out a short story book. Like
Hmm.
6 months after we met. And then one of my short stories in there was about Asher Kells, the protagonist of These Lies End in Death, but like way in the future. And they were like, why don't you write a comic about that? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll bring us back to the beginning. Therefore, that Andor little bit in the log line, Andor meets One Piece, where we're
Yeah.
going back to the beginning, to the origins of like this character, this thief in the sci-fi world.
Yeah, that caught my eye. I'm a big fan of Andor. Shout out Andor season 2 coming out in a few weeks.
Yeah, so excited for that. It's probably the best Star Wars thing.
Honestly, I
Honestly,
love
yeah.
it. That and Ahsoka. Oh,
I haven't seen that one. I heard good things about Skeleton Crew, and
I haven't seen that yet.
yeah, I haven't either.
I plan on watching it though, but
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot of Disney Plus stuff I haven't caught up on. A lot of MCU stuff, a lot of Star Wars stuff. It's kind of hard when your wife doesn't really care about that.
Yeah, I definitely get that. You gotta
Yeah,
find time when you can, right?
yeah,
But I'm glad you brought that up because Andor is really a political thriller,
yes.
and it works so well. So when the log line is Andor meets One Piece, my antenna was up. I'm like, okay, I need to know more. So tell us when you came up with, or when you all were coming up with this story, what was it that drew you to wanting to do, I guess, really a fantasy space opera political thriller?
So the world of the old universe, which is the Forbidden Origins, like main tentpole franchise, was created by Eric and Armani. Armani is a outright communist.
Ah, sweet.
So he was very interested in like an anti-imperialist, anti like fascist story.
Hmm.
And so a lot of the stories that we're telling within it are like have that bent, like very
Mm.
anti-fascist, very anti-imperialist, very anti-capitalist. And These Lies End in Death is about the criminal element in it. And a lot of the, you know how like sometimes the criminal element is forced into it by the circumstances of their birth, the circumstances of where they grew up.
Hmm.
And so that's where a lot of it comes from.
Nice. I like that. So I want to go back to something that you brought up. You mentioned that you all met through TikTok.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if you're familiar with this concept album called Epic. It started as a TikTok thing and ended up becoming this whole phenomenon, and I've
So,
been addicted to it for like the last 3 months now. I'm pretty sure it is laced with drugs because I can't put it down.
Who's that by? Is that
Um, his name is Jorge Rivera Herreras. He has a pretty big following, like north of 10,000 followers. But that's how his concept album started. Started as a TikTok thing. A bunch of people got together afterwards and then recorded this album. So it's interesting because I've never seen comics come together like that. So that is a very interesting origin story for a comic series.
yeah, the TikTok and like other social media outlets have been a very strange way for like people to meet each other, but like it's definitely like a new age way to do it because you used to like have to go to conventions and stuff like that, pay like so much
That's true.
money
Yeah.
just to get there. But now like we can interact with each other. Like Forbidden Origins, like pretty much we're all in different states. Like I live in Brooklyn, they live in Florida. My artist lives in Atlanta. So like
Nice.
we're all over the place.
Sweet. That's awesome. Um, so with all that, what inspired you personally to want to make comics?
So video games and comic books are like my two like favorite mediums, I think, and the '90s Spider-Man game on the
Oh
PlayStation.
yeah, that's a
I
good
think
one.
that's what hooked me into it because like you would see like Spider-Man or Batman on TV, but
Hmm.
like remember back then how you would only watch an episode a week
Yep.
and you couldn't do anything to catch up. So
Yeah.
but a video game, you just had that in your house. You could play it over and over again. That game also included Fantastic Four characters.
Yep.
Daredevil was in it. So you got a pretty cool vertical slice of the Marvel universe.
Yep.
And so, like from that to Marvel versus Capcom later on, like
Marvel vs.
they're like
Capcom was so
this,
good.
yeah, yeah. So like my love of both is what made me want to get into comics.
Awesome. I love that. I've been doing this for about a year now, and I've heard a wide variety of different origin stories for comic creators. Earlier this year, I interviewed a comic creator, and he said that it was Alien versus Predator that got him into
Mm,
comics. Now I'm just like, well, that's new.
yeah,
Because typically the default, because most of the people I interview are within that millennial age range,
yeah,
their default is X-Men the animated series, Batman the animated series, or Spider-Man the animated series.
yeah.
So to hear that it was video games and comics, definitely. I would say along the same lines, but definitely a breath of fresh air in a sense. At the same time.
Yeah, because I'm definitely in that age group a little
Yeah.
bit, like maybe slightly younger, but I
Okay.
was watching X-Men and Batman and Spider-Man. But again, like you would watch one a week. Right.
So the title, "These Lies End in Death." How did that come about?
So I'm actually very bad with titles.
Okay.
So like I did not have that as a name until they were like, you have to name it right now because like we're putting the cover together. And I was like, oh, okay. For the longest time, it was just called Asher Kells.
Mm,
Because again, I'm bad with names, so I just have like whatever I put on there.
yeah.
But because it comes from a short story, and like the short story, like thematically was about how these lies like create legends, but then like it tears them apart eventually.
Hmm.
So I thought like thematically, these lies end in death makes the most sense, especially like as it's a prequel to the short stories as well. So that's where that title came from. I also really love long-winded titles. Uh, oh my God, Philip K. Dick has quite a few of those.
Okay.
Like, was it "We Remember It for You Wholesale" and "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep"? I love like that poetic
Okay.
style of like titling. So that's where that came from.
So what you're saying is you're a fan of anime because it, that's why.
Anime has that too.
Yeah.
Speaking of video games, I was playing the most recent Yakuza game, and the title is "Like a Dragon: Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii."
Huh.
Like that's the whole title, and I was like,
I
"Yeah,
have
just
not
give me
heard
more
of that. Is
titles."
that
Like
fun?
that. It is very fun. They're like what would I call it? It's like if The Godfather was a martial arts film. except this one has pirates now.
Oh
So you're
wow.
like riding
Okay.
around in a ship and everything.
I might have
So
to
that's
check
pretty
that
fun.
out.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned that this story came about from a short story that had been written, when you were going through the process, was there any type of like creative freedoms that you had, or did you have to stick pretty close to what was already written in the short story to make it work?
So Eric and Armani are actually really cool about what we're allowed to do in their universe. They gave us free reign to do anything. They're like, well, we have this main storyline, but it takes place at the end of the timeline. So
Ooh.
you have hundreds of thousands of years to do whatever the hell you want. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So I wrote the short story. So I it's like giving myself permission to change things.
Yeah.
And I did something pretty similar where the short story takes place at the end of a timeline. So I have like 15 years to do whatever I want
Oh,
before then.
that's nice. I like
Yeah.
that. I'm a huge proponent of being as creative as possible when it comes to telling stories and making your own stories work in a way that makes sense to you. So far, we're about 10 minutes in, and you've sold me on just not only this story, but also on the short story.
Nice.
So I'm going to be purchasing all of it for sure.
Good. And also, we did lower the price of the comic like recently.
Really
Yeah.
nice.
Part of it was just we had it at priced that way because of the way KDP works. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
probably had to deal with that stuff. You know how like they take 90%
Hmm.
of everything. So we had it priced that way, and we're like, oh, let's just lower it because like we're not making millions of dollars here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely not a big fan of KDP in that
No, we're
regard.
looking for something else for sure. But
Yeah, but it at least is a start. Um, Forbidden Origin Comics. So you say that you're not good at coming up with names. Where did that name come from?
it came from our company, Forbidden Origins, and then we added comics to it. That's where it came from.
Honestly, it's the smartest way to go.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's already there. All the pieces are
Hmm.
there, so just use them. So that's where that came from. And recently, post my comic being released, we added a bunch of artists and writers too that are joining the comic book sphere of our company, and I'm very excited about that. Tomorrow, we're going to have a meeting where I tell them like, "Hey, this is our goals. You guys have any pitches for me?" And my style is going to be like, I'm not going to reject anything. It's like I'm going to help you make this something we can make
Hmm.
because we part of Forbidden Origin's goal is that we're like a bunch of people that hadn't made it in the industry. Like maybe we don't have any connections, or maybe we aren't that experienced. So we kind of just want a play box for a bunch
Yeah,
of new creatives to come in and do whatever they want. You kind of have to do that when you tell like more left leaning stories,
that's true.
anyway. So that's kind of our goal.
Nice. I like that. I think that's something that's not seen much in the indie comic creator scene. You see a lot of small publishers or a lot of independent creators doing their own thing, but you don't really see a lot of like indie publishers bringing on other creatives, which is really cool to see. So by the time this episode comes out, that would have happened. So that's going to be interesting to follow. Will
Yeah.
that be something that you talk about on your social media, or is that something that's going to be more in house?
Uh, Back and forth. We don't really have like a. We have a social media presence, and we're not like strict about it.
Okay.
So if people want to talk about it, they can talk about it. I'm not great at talking about, social media. But if like a bunch of our artists and writers want to like show off like some of the work they're doing like behind the scenes, I'm completely okay with it.
Hmm.
So uh, we just want to be a very open thing, and something that we looked to was like Image Comics, like '90s Image
Yeah.
Comics,
Yeah.
where it was very artist forward.
Yep.
So that's kind of what we want to go with.
I like that. No, I'm sorry. I love that. Um,
Thanks.
so I feel like I'm really diving into like this whole concept of the publisher side for you guys because it's so intriguing because you don't like I said you don't see that often. But
No, no, for sure.
when it comes to like taking submissions or people pitching ideas and things like that, what are some of the things that you look for from a good pitch where you're like, okay, yes, we're going to go with this?
Primarily passion from the creatives
I
themselves,
like
because
that.
you are trained as like a creative, like probably as an amateur too, like watching YouTube tutorials and stuff like that. You are trained to like find stuff that appeals to other people and not yourself.
That's true.
So we don't really want that kind of thing. We don't want you to feel like you're hindering yourself in order to tell the stories at our organization. We want you to be who you are, because again, we're building this from the ground up. We want that to be a part of our identity. Is you guys, pretty much all the creatives, building piece by piece, block by block, and you can tell which blocks were placed by which people. That's what we want.
Awesome. That's great. Um, okay, I'm gonna do one more last question about
Okay.
the whole publishing company because that's so interesting. Um, what is I would say the 5 year and 10 year goal for Forbidden Origin Comics?
We want we want to be able to pay rent. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like all of us are working full-time jobs, and if we're not working full-time jobs, we're in school full-time.
Oh, nice.
Uh, so the goal is like I don't want to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars myself, or like I don't want to own a mansion. I
Right.
want to be able to live in my apartment with my wife and my cats and create full time.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the goal, like company wide, not just the comic side. It's everybody working decent wage, just putting out whatever they want. That's our goal.
That's the best thing. I've said this for the longest. Like, I don't really care to have that much money or to be
Yeah.
famous, as long as I can pay my bills, live comfortably enough to be able to, get whatever I need, and then help others. I'm good to go.
Yeah, I don't
So,
want an Avengers Endgame. I don't like sure that would be cool. Like like you
right.
could fund a lot of stuff that way, but I don't need that. I need food and I I need rent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Just the basics. That's all we need. So, back to you specifically, Seth. Are there any other stories that you're working on that people should be looking out for?
the interesting thing is like I self-funded a comic before all this started. That was a pain,
Yeah.
as you probably know. Uh, and that was kind of what helped me get the job too. Because I was pretty much the only person that had like a comic when I went to them. I'm like, hey, look at this, and they're like, oh, you actually have something.
Nice.
I was like, thank you. And then, so the goal is to bring that into Forbidden Origins. Like we do have like another universe planned after the old universe, and the idea is kind of like original characters from all the writers and stuff, like filling up this universe. And I think I'm going to take that idea and like place it in that new universe. Uh, there were some. Was there anything else? There are more stuff I'm working on for Forbidden Origins comics.
Okay.
One of them's like a racing story that's inspired by Pluto from Netflix. Have you seen that?
I have not, but I've heard pretty good things about it.
Yeah, Pluto's fantastic. It's like a murder mystery like centered around robots and stuff like that. Like
Ooh.
yeah, so it's pretty
Anything
sick.
with crime thrillers is going to get my attention, so that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I do want to write like a neo-noir story
Okay.
around like racing and colonialism.
Nice.
I'm half Puerto Rican as well, so like there's definitely some links to that, especially the book War Against All Puerto Ricans. Like
I've heard of that book.
there are some incredible, very sad stories in that book that if if I did have the money, I would just make a TV show.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
That sounds awesome. So we're about to wrap up, but I have one final question that's going to be kind of a interesting, fun question. So you're a freelancer and you have the opportunity to choose any character across any medium to write a story about. What character would you choose to write about? And what type of story would it be? Like what genre?
So if I ever get into Marvel, I've always wanted to do a Marvel versus Capcom comic and have it star Spider-Man and Mega Man. They would be the two main characters.
I like it.
Because I remember the old CD of Marvel vs. Capcom on PS1. It had Spider-Man and Mega Man on the cover,
Yep.
and that is stuck in there. So that's what I would like to do.
That would be fun, especially since I think in the next year we're going to be getting a Marvel versus DC event, which should be fun. So
Yeah,
Marvel
they both
versus
seem a
Capcom should
lot
be
less
great.
strict than they used to be. So that's going to
Yeah,
be interesting. What's going to happen from that?
it should be. Appreciate it, Seth, for coming on here. This has been fun. It was great to get to know you, to get to know more about your comics and the publishing company that you all have out there. Can you tell the people about any social media that you have so they can find you and get more of your work?
Yeah, so forbiddenorigins.com, that's where you'll find all of our works. We also have links to all of our social medias. Mine's Seth at Forbidden Origins on Threads, I think on Blue Sky now too. That's
Okay.
primarily where you'll see me.
Nice. I have all the links in the description below. So when you're watching this on YouTube, go check it out. Go buy the book. Give them some support. From what I can tell, they're doing great work, and I try not to steer you guys wrong. So give them give them some support, and show them some love. Until next time, this has been the Divergent Comics YouTube channel. Again, I'm Gary, and thank you all for watching.
And thanks for having me. Bye.